And now, an exclusive first look at the upcoming project from Black Channel Films.
Gentrification is basically class warfare, and that's the way it is in our community. It actually results in the death of people, and it results in the displacement of communities. I say in the death of people because I think the New York Times did an excellent piece on the timeline of Eric Gardner in terms of why he's dead. Eric Gardner is dead because of a real estate owner who did not want black people in front of his building. And in New York, we have something called 311. If you repeatedly call it, it goes to the police department, and the police department has monthly statistical meetings to see how many 311 calls they get on different issues. And the lieutenant in that precinct was rammed out by his top commanders for having too many 311 calls on this particular area of the precinct. And he phoned the precinct and said, "I want those corners clear." And two officers that don't have a strong relationship with the community showed up. They saw Eric Gardner just standing there in the corner doing nothing, and they basically went to clear the corners, and they murdered Eric Gardner.
There's a growing mountain of evidence that police departments now play an active role in forcibly removing black people from areas through the use of violence and intimidation. Take, for example, the case of Philando Castile, a school cafeteria worker gunned down on the internet by police in Minnesota. But the video only tells part of the story. Philando Castile was murdered in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. The city of Falcon Heights has no police department. Instead, Falcon Heights and the nearby city of Lauderdale, Minnesota, both have a contract to pay the city of St. Anthony to provide police services to them. This gives St. Anthony police powers over this entire region, and St. Anthony's arrest data shows what can only be described as an ethnic agenda. The black population in this region is still small, but its representation in St. Anthony's arrest data is shockingly high. If you add up the total racial populations for St. Anthony, Lauderdale, and Falcon Heights, the region is approximately only 7% black, while the white population is about 78%. But according to the arrest data from St. Anthony's own records in 2015, even though black people in the St. Anthony, Lauderdale, Falcon Heights region are only 7% of the population, they were an astonishing 41% of the total arrests made by St. Anthony's police department, while whites in this area were only 53% of arrests, even though whites are 11 times the size of the black population. Why are the white arrest numbers so low? Because St. Anthony prefers to let white offenders go with only a warning. In 2015, 67% of the people St. Anthony police let off with just a warning were white. However, only 17% of the people they gave warnings to were black. And in 2016, the numbers have only gotten worse. As of July 2016, black arrests made by St. Anthony's police have risen to 47%, while white arrests have fallen to 46%. So why such a sharp focus on racial profiling? Perhaps the answer lies in the black population's growth. Even though the black population in this region is still small, over the last decade, it's actually doubled from around 3% to its current 7%. And not surprisingly, since 2011, St. Anthony's arrest data shows a sharp increase in arresting or stopping blacks while overlooking the white population. During the recording of his death, Philando's girlfriend can be heard saying that she knew they shouldn't have taken that route through Falcon Heights. And now we know why she said that. Black people are being targeted. And now, with the killing of Philando Castile, the message that Falcon Heights, Lauderdale, and St. Anthony have sent to the black population is clear. We don't want you here, and you can die if you even try to come. What effect do you think the murder of Philando will have on the few blacks who remain in this area? But the problem is more than just local. State legislatures have now stepped in to help push the ethnic clearing agenda with lethal results. In July of 2016, Alton Sterling, an unarmed black man in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, was pinned to the ground by two white police officers. Multiple camera angles caught the horrific events as even though Sterling had nothing in his hands, the two officers pinned him to the ground and shot him execution style in the chest and back. Many people cite Louisiana's racist history in this incident, but more recent events may have also played a hand. In 2015, the unincorporated area of East Baton Rouge Parish petitioned the state to break away from Baton Rouge and become their own city, calling itself St. George. One of the police officers who killed Alton Sterling is believed to have lived in a part of the unincorporated area of East Baton Rouge just 15 minutes outside of where the proposed city of St. George would be. Baton Rouge is a majority black city, but not surprisingly, the new proposed city of St. George would be over 70% white with a median income twice that of Baton Rouge. The courts rejected St. George's petition to be their own city, but such an obvious gesture shows the overwhelming contempt that much of the upper-income white population holds toward the black residents in this area. Some people believe this event caused the mentality in the area to change. If the courts would not allow those with animosity toward blacks to leave, then they would push blacks out themselves. The next year, Governor John Bel Edwards passed the so-called Blue Lives Matter law. Even though murders of police officers are at historic lows, this law was passed to make any action deemed as being against a police officer a hate crime, including resisting arrest. It was obvious to everyone Governor Edwards was targeting black people with this law, and it would only be a matter of time before it would be used against them. From there, the timeline is set in motion, and the countdown to Alton Sterling's killing would be inevitable. In 2015, St. George is denied its petition to become a city. In May 2016, Louisiana passes the Blue Lives Matter law. 5 weeks later, Alton Sterling is killed.